Hello. Never been good at starting videos, but I haven't done one in a while. I'm going to be doing another CGC submission soon. It's probably been, I don't know, 6 or 7 months. I think I got my last one back in January, and I probably sent that in November. So this one I probably won't get back until July. But been picking up quite a few cool new misprints and things over the past 3 to 4 months. Figured it's time to get them out the door. So let's get into it. Starting off, we've got a Hollow Bleed based on limited Hitmonchan. I have not had very good luck in the past with grading Galaxy Foil Bleeds. From what I can tell, it's very difficult to actually get the insufficient ink designation, even on like Cosmos foil ones. This one is in pretty good shape, probably a 7 to 8, maybe 7.5 or so. I figured I'd just go ahead and send it. I don't expect it to get the designation, but it's still going to look pretty good in a slab. We've got another Hitmonchan here. This one I am pretty stoked about. I have had maybe half a dozen or so different examples of low black ink Hitmonchan come through my collection over the years, and this one just spanks the other ones by a margin. It is very beat up, but honestly, that makes no difference to me for a card this cool. Here, I'll bring this one back for comparison's sake. You can really just tell on that text. Definitely the lightest ink version of this I've seen. I honestly didn't know that they could get this light. Kind of opened my eyes a bit. So I'll be selling my current copy, which is a CGC 6. Very excited for that one. This is a pretty cool one. So we've got some yellow ink over the front here. You can see it over Seismic Toss. It's kind of vertical in the same vein as like a Screen Hollow, but much thicker lines and more spaced out. You can sort of see 2 here over Machamp, even a third one over his arm. It also has a very speckled border. Don't know if I'm picking that up on my iPhone here. But so, a very interesting combo. Speckled border and yellow ink over the front. Probably a 6.5 or so condition. Pretty cool. Can't say I've seen another one quite like that. I have seen another one like this. There's a near identical copy that Reggie Gigagod on Instagram owns. Super cool additional white ink, just very apparent what's going on. I think that might be part of like Magneton's background is just very light colored. And I love how you still get this really cool characteristic unobscured line on the left side of the art box. Happens a lot on these white ink errors for whatever reason. Not the best, probably a 6 or so. But the error is outstanding. I love going from just like tons of stars to can't see anything right there at that angle. Looks really cool with this. Got another Hollow Bleed here. Probably the best Mewtwo I've seen, just in terms of a standard Hollow Bleed. Very neat. You can really see the sheen at this angle. How holographic the whole front is. This is a really nice one. And again, I don't think it's really gonna, it's not really severe enough to get the error designation. I don't think it warrants it personally. Pretty good shape though. A card like this, I look at how cool the bleed is and that it's near mint, and I'm like, man, even without the error label, if it misses, this should still be slabbed, I think. I also say that because I only have 3 copies right here in this submission for Hollow Bleeds. If I were going for a binder set, I might feel differently. Here's a near mint Black Flame Ninetales. Something I'm not really looking for specifically. I'm almost certainly gonna sell this. These, they are, you know, more uncommon than normal copies, but they're still not very difficult to find for cheap on eBay. They go unlisted, unmentioned quite often. Like this one, probably a 7.5 to 8. It was like $10 for me. That's an easy buy. If for no other reason that I don't currently have one, so that's something. Another really cool one. This is a white ink error, Venusaur. I've actually seen, I think, 3 copies almost identical in how they manifest, this being one of the 3. I only bought 2 though. Probably like a 6 or maybe even a 5.5. That's a lot of wear on the back, honestly. But the front looks, you know, not bad in terms of visual appeal. Really looks like he's using Solar Beam, huh? That's a cool one. Need to find a Blastoise and Charizard to match. This is the 3rd Hollow Bleed I referenced earlier. Pretty nice Zapdos. Got a lot of depth going on there. For whatever reason, it's really hard to see Hollow Bleeds on electric type cards. I guess, again, because of the lighter color, the yellow and white over the front. But even so, that's a pretty good one. Again, near mint, I'd say, maybe a 7. And when I say that, you know, I'm used to CGC's grading standards. Admittedly, they've gotten pretty lenient in recent times, I think. So this is another card I think is going to miss any sort of designation. If it were going to get one, it would be additional ink. It is a particularly red Juggle Jolteon I've had for a hot second. I have this copy for comparison. So it's actually a Hollow Bleed, you can catch that there. So you can, you know, it's very visually obvious to me, this copy is much more red. In terms of just appeal, I think that's pretty darn cool. You've got other signs like over the illustrator name and the bottom right corner, also more red. But I don't know that this would really stand out as a misprint or deserves it on the label. You could chalk this up to just variations that are within range for different print runs. All the same, I do think it's cool enough to grade. The other reason for that is that I have this Flareon, which I recently picked up, which is kind of the same thing going on. Just a super, super red Flareon, which again, maybe this misses a designation, but it looks really cool. Here's a normal one for comparison. Let's get the error in front. And again, that to me is just, that's pretty obvious. It's all over the front. And especially like Flareon's tail and head and body. That's awesome. Nice swirl on there. I really like this one. These Japanese ones have really been growing on me lately. Got a couple more here. This is an interesting one. I, in all honesty, have only recently started picking up on this sort of thing, and I don't have a great term for it or explanation as to what's going on. So there's a sort of underlying pattern on these cards where you'll see, you know, pockets of magenta and all the same spots on all these copies of cards. And same with like all the different underlying ink layers. Like on this Haunter, this is a normal one. We'll compare here. This copy down here has a little bit more magenta in that corner than they normally do. It's just a bit more saturated, it's a bit darker. Very obvious for this section here on the left of the art box. Much more saturated there, above the 50 HP, same thing. To the right of the art box, same thing. And the coolest part to me, if you look in the background art behind Haunter on this normal copy, you don't really make out much of anything. Granted, this one's very beat up. You can see sort of these shapes in there, that there is some sort of definition. Whereas on this copy in the background art, those same shapes are just this really rich purple. Much redder than normal, which to me, when you catch it in the light, looks really cool. I have found a few Japanese fossil hollows with this sort of, I'm gonna just say like saturation misprint going on. I have a Hitmonlee that got additional ink and all my other ones got insufficient. I'm sort of thinking this will be more in line with the Hitmonlee and get additional ink for the extra magenta, especially in that background art. But honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if this just goes unnoticed and does not get a designation. It's not in particularly good shape, sadly, but super cool, I think. This Moltres here is in the same vein. You can sort of tell, at least, you know, I hope you can, immediately. You've got, again, the bottom right corner, much more yellow than normal over the Fossil logo, and sort of around this upper right corner. The whole thing is just oddly saturated. This one is more in line, I think, with insufficient ink. They will probably say that there's not enough yellow over the other areas of the card aside from these three, and decide to use insufficient ink as the designation. Here's a comparison copy. It's a hollow lead. So you can sort of see there's not too much difference between these two sections, and even the upper right corner, between this one and a normal copy, but the rest of the front is sort of missing the yellow. Not missing, obviously, but it's very low on the yellow in those sections. I think it's pretty cool. Here's a Fossil Dragonite, back to English. Got some additional white ink in the hollow. There's a few different sort of manifestations for additional white ink on these hollows. This is not my favorite, this one that's sort of like vertical brush lines all over the front. It's cool, don't get me wrong, but I prefer the ones with a very solid line on the left or around the character art or both. This one, I sprung on it because it looked really nice in terms of condition, and it does have a white ink error. I'm trying to make a set of these. Unfortunately, it is bent. I don't know if I can catch it without taking it out of the slab. The sleeve. There's a bend right here. So sad to say, despite how nice this looks, it will not grade particularly high. But since I am kind of doing a CGC slabbed set for this error in Fossil, I'm going to go ahead and send it. I'll probably end up upgrading that eventually if I find a better one. Here we've got a Fossil Magneton, a mirror hollow, as some people call them. This one is markedly short and absent on stars in the background. So CGC gives these either missing hollow pattern if they're extremely severe, or in this case, incomplete hollow pattern. You can still catch some stars in the light like I'm doing right now, but on the whole, much fewer stars than most copies. This was near mint, like 20 bucks. It was listed as an error, which I thought was pretty unusual. Most people don't catch on to these and then go on to list them so cheap. But I, had to pick it up near mint. Pretty good example. I'll take it. I love this one. It's a muck. I know, muck's not super cool. This is another white ink error. You can see a ton of graininess on the left side of this hollow and a very solid line on the left, kind of like I mentioned earlier, talking about that Dragonite. All of that is because of extra white ink from the opaque layer. What I think is insane is just how much ink is on the right side of this card. Like, you can see a little bit of exposed foil underneath that thumb, and you can catch some stars in that area. But just look at how much brighter and more defined these orange lines from the background are, as opposed to over here. That's pretty crazy for a white ink error. I do have another copy of Muck with white ink. Actually, I sold it. I was gonna say I haven't, but I sold it. So this, when I found it, I sold my other one. This was a PSA 9. It has a little nick up there, which at first I thought maybe I caused that when I cracked it out. I did not. I checked the scans and it is indeed still there. So, I don't know, maybe PSA missed it. Either way, very excited for this because it's in great shape and it's killer in terms of the strength of the error. Just seeing that and then seeing this, only the left side really shines in the light, that's outstanding to me. Still in Fossil, this is a yellow ink error, extra yellow in the hollow. I have been wanting to put together a full set of these Fossil hollows with this error. I've made zero progress in a very long time. This has a very cool textured, grainy look to the hollow, which I think is just awesome. This one was my binder copy. I found another copy ungraded, nearly identical condition, nearly identical strength. I gave it a very slight edge over this copy, so I kicked this one out of my binder and put the stronger one in there. since they're roughly the same condition, and then I'll have this one graded as a duplicate. Love it. Got a white ink base 2 Nidoqueen. I know base 2 gets a lot of hate for being a reprint set, at least from some people, but man, white ink on these Cosmos foil backgrounds is spectacular, if you ask me. These base 2 ones can be really cool. I may have seen another Nidoqueen somewhere, certainly not this strong. So this is definitely the strongest example I've seen for Nidoqueen. And man, watching that move in the light is just so cool. That one I think was a PSA 6. I cracked it recently. And then here as well, another white ink base 2 holo, this Venusaur. Doesn't have as many large blacked off sections for the white ink, but does have that same graininess all over the holo and a small line blocked over the left side. This one was graded with CGC as a 7.5, but did not have an error label, so it must have been missed, I guess. I will be resubmitting it and checking that error box, so hopefully this gets its deserved designation. Very cool. Moving on to some rocket holos. Those of you that know me know that I'm crazy about this error, insufficient black ink. Real quick, the hallmarks are going to be faded text that's more gray than usual. The frame around the art box is going to be a lighter golden color. All the black elements of the character arc are going to be faded, and the holo with less black ink obscuring it is going to pop a lot more in the light. I do have an example to my left. It's not a Charizard though, so I'll show that in a moment when we get to that card. This one was my binder copy. I have a binder set. I try not to take those copies out unless I find a duplicate of equal strength, but worse condition. So I found one recently, another Dark Charizard about this strong, but worse condition. So I swapped that out with this one, which will go off to CGC. Got a Dark Dragonite here. This is possibly my favorite example of this error in the set. I'm very partial to the art for Dark Dragonite. I think the character art, being that bright yellow without the black ink, is just particularly cool. This is a pretty strong example. I would probably give it like an 86 or 87 out of 100 in terms of the strength of the error. Conditions, so-so, like that 7 range again. Not quite as strong as my other ones. This was actually listed as an error, which is very rare for these faded rocket holos. And I think it was only like 50 bucks, so I immediately picked it up. I guess I'll hang on to this because here is the next one in this submission. It's another Dark Dragonite. Better condition and a slightly stronger example of the error. This to me is more like a 90 something out of 100. Once it gets over like 90 to me out of 100, it's very difficult to sort of discern. You have to get pretty up close and personal to tell. Even with this comparison side by side, it might not be easy to pick up on my phone. But the bottom copy has lighter text than the top copy. You might be able to tell from there. And comparing the two frames around the art box, you'll find the same thing. Maybe we can try this. There's ever so slightly less black ink in like that, those two sections of the frame. If you compare like that top one there. This is sort of how granular I can get with this. But so very excited for this one. Put this one back. It's in really good shape. Probably gonna get like an 8 or even an 8.5. And it's as strong of an example for Dark Dragonite as I have found. So very happy to own it. Get it graded. Got a Dark Gyarados here. Same error, same set. Roughly similar condition, actually a little bit better than that Dragonite. This maybe has a shot at a 9. It is a weaker example of the error. I would not be too surprised if this missed a designation because it is pretty borderline. You do have the same elements. The frame's not quite as faded. The text isn't quite as faded. The holo does still pop quite a bit compared to a normal copy. I was on the, what's the expression? Not on the edge. I almost didn't want to grade this because I don't really think it's going to get the error, but because it's really mint, I thought, you know what, I might as well just send it. Got a dark magneton here, same thing, low black. This was my binder copy for, gosh, almost 2 years probably. I just could not upgrade it. Again, using my arbitrary 100-point scale, I would give this like an 85. It's really good. You've got the frame is gold, the background is lighter, especially like this guy here, the shadow in the background. The text is sort of missing in spots, it's very pocked, it's faded. But I know that there are stronger out there, and I finally found a stronger copy. It's totally beat up, but it is what I consider like a 90 to 95 plus out of 100 example of the error, which I put in my binder. This one being near mint and probably still enough to get the designation. I could finally send, get it slabbed. I'm probably going to end up with a binder set and a slab set eventually. Something a little bit different. A blue Dark Wheezing, missing the yellow ink layer. So thrilled to own this. This is one of the first missing yellow rocket hollows I ever heard about, or that ever entered my awareness. I want to say I saw a photo of this like on E4 or something ages ago. Regardless, this popped up on eBay from, it might have been a zero feedback seller, $5,000 or best offer. I got it for $1,500. Thought that was a pretty good price. It might be way more than other people would pay. I really don't know. There aren't nearly enough copies of these or sales of these to have any sort of frame of reference, really. This did have to go through eBay's authenticity guarantee. So that was good because it went to CGC and they actually already authenticated it as a genuine error, even though I don't have it slabbed yet. So that's comforting. All the same, I do want this encapsulated to match my Dark Alakazam with the same error. Will I ever have a full set of these? Almost certainly not. They either won't show up in my lifetime or I will be grossly outbid, broke as I am. All the same, this is pretty sweet. Okay. The Mac Daddy Rainbow Energy. Low black, former PSA 9, absolutely dazzling. For a long time, I didn't know what this card would look like with low black. Same for the other trainers in the set. There are patterns and signs on all of the Pokémon cards themselves, but for the trainer cards and this energy, I wasn't quite sure what to look for until this copy just really stood out to me, and I thought, okay, this has to be it. Of course, now I know what to look for. I have a normal copy here for comparison. So again, the holo pops much more in the light. I mean, that, my goodness, night and day difference. You can compare, the bottom copy is just a little bit darker all over the body around the word energy, and then this line separating between the top part there and the holo is also much lighter and more gray on the top copy. If you look at the center of the energy, it's much more defined on a normal copy, the black ring around the center, and then also just the black sphere in the middle. This one is noticeably missing, especially on the right side and the bottom, the black ring, and is much more faded in the middle. And then same as the rest of the set, you're going to have more gray text and sort of pocked text. But most noticeably, just the greater brightness to the holo. To me, I mean, this is like one of the coolest things to collect, I think. This is the same appeal to me as like a Neo Revelation double holo. There's just more holo. It's just cooler to look at, plain and simple. This former PSA 9, I have very high hopes for the grade. A 9 would be insane. Pretty great condition. And also just being, minty really helps you appreciate the appeal of a brighter holo on these. Super cool. And the last rocket holo here, a Dark Raichu. Not as good as my binder copy. You do have some faded text. The character art is also faded. The frame is not as gold as I would like it to be, but you are missing the shadow around the art box. Dark Raichu is the only card in the set that does that, interestingly enough. Must be a difference in the design, plate for the black layer. This one came from the same seller as the Dark Dragonite I mentioned earlier, was listed as an error. This was also listed as an error. I sort of recognized that it was weaker than my other copy, but it's near mint and probably strong enough to get the designation, so I figured why not? Might as well pick it up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pick this up on my phone. It's pretty subtle either way. So this Black Star Hollow Mew, one of my favorite cards of all time, near mint to mint condition, can't go wrong. It has some yellow ink vertical streaks on the front of the card, on top of the Mew, and then also on the body of the text for Devolution Beam. So subtle that I can't really even pick it up here. I guess you can kind of see it on the body there. This could very well miss a designation on the label, but I am obsessed with this card. It all errors and misprints and variants of it that I could find. So when I saw this, I thought, yep, I'm picking it up. Only a few more here. Got a Japanese Hollow Shift Southern Islands Mew. Probably my favorite card in the set in terms of the artwork. Just adorable card. I mean, a Hollow Meryl, come on. This was an auction, it was a PSA 5. I think I ended up winning it for $7, so clearly nobody else caught on. But I love the way these hollow shifts look. The hollow on the border for this is much more noticeable than an English copy will be, which we'll get to in a moment. And then seeing those energy symbols and all of the text shifted as well. The set symbol just checks a lot of boxes. Gorgeous. Here's my English copy. This one sort of diagonally shifted, both down and to the left, the white layer that is. One of the largest Meryl shifts I know of, maybe the largest. And again, as I mentioned, you can see the hollow on the border down there, but it is not nearly as obvious as on that Japanese copy. You can see a little bit of bleed down there, which is pretty cool. This is in really good shape for what it is. You know, just really that wear on the corner down there. Knowing CGC nowadays, I wouldn't be surprised if this got a 9. An 8.5 would still be spectacular. Either way, this is near mint, pretty close to mint. And for an error of this magnitude, wow. Very happy to have this. This is like a great standalone card to me. Probably gonna have to go expressed here, alongside that Dark Wheezing. And lastly, Feraligatr. This is also low black ink, but markedly different from how my Rocket ones look. You've got faded text. You can sort of see, too close, on the word Chomp, on the 50+, the set symbol there, the first edition stamp, even just the word Feraligatr, especially on the F. This is pretty similar to Neo Revelation, how the low black ink looks in that set on those hollows. It's not a very uniform fade on the text. It more so starts on the left side and tapers off as you continue to the right through the text, for whatever reason. And it also does not affect the character art at all, any of the outlines or the background art. It's one of the reasons I don't like the Neo Genesis ones as much as other low black ink errors, is because it doesn't affect that character art, which I think is a really cool thing. This was a PSA 8. I was on the fence of grading it because I thought if I'm gonna ever do a binder set, this would be great to have, but I'm not sure if I'm doing a binder set, and it's in good enough shape that I kind of want to get it graded. All the same, that is pretty cool. As far as I know, it's the only low black example for WotC hollows that does not affect the character art. Maybe the base theme deck hollows like my Hitmonchan. Those might not either. So I guess that's a difference in the design plate for the black layer. Very interesting. And that concludes the submission, coming up on the 30-minute mark. Hope you guys enjoyed. Saw some new things, saw some cool things. I will maybe do a return video. I might just end up posting things to my Instagram again. I make no promises. Either way, have a good weekend. At least it's my weekend, so have a good night.